Hello friends, how are you? Welcome to the Japan Study Center. Today we are going to see the chapter of geography and what is our topic today?
Of winds. The wind is the most important topic regarding to the geography chapter. We have just studied that air pressure is inventionally is the distributed. Air attempted to the balance the uneven distribution of the pressure. And then it's a move from high pressure area to low pressure area and horizontal movement of air in a response to different in the pressure to the storm as a wind will to vertically or nearly vertically moving air is called air current. The both wind and the air current is formed to the system of circulation in the atmosphere. There is an important point here according to the winds. Here show the relationship between to the air and pressure. There is the most important air and pressure is the most important here. The stable gradient here show and the high pressure is also shown in this diagram. Another side is the low pressure on this diagram. The first point here pressure of gradient and winds. There is important here. There is a close relationship between to the pressure and the wind speed. The greater and different in the air pressure between the 2 points. The stepper is the pressure gradient and the greater in the speed of the winds. Generally there is a pressure is a gradient, slower is the speed of the wind. There is important pressure and gradient and the winds. There is important topic here. Next here the Coriolis is effect as the winds. There is important the Coriolis effect and wind. Wind do not cross the isobar at the right angle as a pressure gradient direct as them. They get deflected from to their original paths. One of the most is a potent influence on the wind's direction in the deflections are caused by the earth as a rotation on its axis and demonstrated by the gas powered there is a Coriolis is a 1844 and known as their Coriolis effect on the Coriolis force. The Coriolis force is a tend to be deflect the winds from their original direction. In the northern hemisphere, wind are deflected to about to their right, and in the southern hemisphere, to about there is a left, and this known as the parallel as low. The Coriolis force is absent is along the equator, but increasing progressive toward the pole. Here so in this diagram, quality effect of the winds, there is a most important here. There is a maximum on the pole and northern hemisphere and deflection of the right and the equator non-deflections and southern hemisphere deflection to the left. There is the most important diagram shown in this here. Our next topic is the most important here, types of winds. There is the most important according to geography chapter. For the age of man has observed that is a some area of the earth, the winds is a blow is a predominantly from one direction throughout the year. There is important. In other area there is a wind's direction change with the season and in the still other. The winds are so variable that no pattern is discernible and except to this difference the winds are generalized under three categories. There is a three categories the most important here. First of all here planetary wind means permanent winds and periodic winds and third here local wind. There is a types of wind is the most important. The types of winds are three types here. Planetary winds, it is also called to the permanent winds and periodic winds and the local wind. There is important and the very explain here. The first here planetary wind. There is the most important planetary wind is also called to the permanent winds. Is a blow from high pressure belt to low pressure. There is important point here. The wind is a high pressure to the low pressure belt in the same direction throughout the year and they blow over to the vast area of continent and the ocean. There is a crystalline and the crystallized and the polar crystallized. There is important here diagram. There is the most important polar front and polar stem is the high pressure on there and the central there is the intertropically convergence and the no threat of threat and subtropical high is the most important. This diagram will show the clear on this. The planetary band. The planetary band is the most important here. The permanent band there is the follow in there. The globe is shown in this 60 south and the northern here the high pressure on this diagram. According to planetary, their first point here, the sterilize. The sterilize is important here. The wind that blow from to the subtropically high pressure area to about is equator is a low pressure area is called trade or extremely winds. The word is the trade has been to drive from to the German word trade, which means a track. To the below of trade mean to blow stemly is there is a constantly in the same direction. Because of the corridors effect, the northern trade is being to move away from to the subtropical high in the northern east direction. In the southern hemisphere, the trade bends a diversity of there is a subtropical high to about to the equator low from to the southeast direction. As the trade winds tend to blow up mainly from the east, they are also known as the tropically sterilize. There is an important here. The next year, the westerlies here winds. The wind that is a move is a pole from to subtropically high pressure in the northern hemisphere are detected to be a right and thus blow from to southwest. This is the southern hemisphere are deflected to the left and blow from to northwest. Thus, this is a wind is called westerlies wind. There is important wind here, and the polar esterlies. There is important also. The polar esterlies is a blow from polar regions to about to the subpolar low pressure region, and the direction in the northern hemisphere is from northeast to be southwest and from southeast to northwest in the southern hemisphere. There is an important point here. The next year, periodical wind. There is an important. The direction of this wind is a change into the change of the season. The monsoon winds are a most important periodical wind. There is important. The monsoon wind here. The word of monsoon has been to drive from to the Arabic word is a Muslim, means a season. The wind that is a reverse there is a direction with the change of season as called monsoon wind. During the summer and the monsoon wind blow from a sea to about and the land during the winter from a land to about a sea. And traditionally this wind were explaining as a land and sea browser on the large scale. But this is explanation does not be is a hold good now. Nowadays by the monsoon is generally expected as a seasonal modification of the general planetary wind system. The static monsoon is the result of interaction of both planetary wind system. Here show the most important two diagram here, a summer monsoon and winter monsoon. You know that there is a high pressure of the winter monsoon and low pressure is a summer monsoon. There is important here. But there is the other side is a high pressure on the sea area on the summer monsoon and low pressure of the winter monsoon in their side. There is a most important diagram show in this picture and there is important for the flow of the monsoon in this side. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Myanmar, and Burma, Sri Lanka and the Arabian Sea, the Bay of Bengal, Southeast Asia, Northern Australia, China and the Japan are the important regions where the monsoon wind are prevalent. There is important here. The wind which varies up, there is a direction with their change of season are called monsoon. You know that what is a monsoon? Winds which are reverse their direction with the change of the season are called monsoon. There is important. And the next here, local wind. There is important here local wind. Till now we were to discussing there are major winds of the earth as a surface which are the vital from understanding the climatic region. But we are all the aware that there is wind that affect to the local weather. Local wind usually is affect to the small area and are confined to be lower level of the is a troposphere. Some of the local winds are given below. There is important here. First here, the land and sea browses. They are important here first. Land and sea browses. The land and sea browses are prevalent on the narrow striply along the coasts are a lake. It is a diurnal daily cycle in which the differentially of heatings of the land and water produce a low and the high pressure. During the day, when the landmarks get heated more quickly and then to the adjoining sea at a large scale lake, air expands and rises. This process produces a local low pressure area of the on land and sea browses then to the ball to the browsing from to the water high pressure to about the low and their land is a low pressure. The sea browser began to the devolve pace shortly and before a news and generally is reached it is a greatest intensity during to the midday to be later afternoon. And these cool winds have a significant and moderating influence in the coastal area. That is important here. Here show the diagram C and browsing. There is important C here and the browsing through to other side. There is a warm air is cooling and the descending and the cold is a motion. There is important here low pressure here, but the high pressure is the other side. Air is cooling and descending. There are warm air is over to the water ranging and low pressure is create them. There is important show in this picture. At the night, the land and the air above to the cool more quickly than to nearby the water body. As a result, land has a high pressure while there sea has a compensative a low pressure area. Generally, wind began to the blow from land high pressure to about to sea is a low pressure, and this is known as the land breeze. There is important here. The next here. The mountain and valley browses. They are important here. The mountain and valley browses. They are important. The another combination of the local wind that is undergoes a daily reversal as a consist of the mountain and valley browses. On a warm sunny day, there is a mountain slope or heated more than to the valley of floor. Here their pressure is low or over to slope while there is the comparative high in the valley below. As a result, gently wind began to be blow from to the valley to about slope and it is assumed that is name of the valley browsing. That is important. After the sunset, the rapidly radiation take place on the mountain slope and here high pressure develop more rapidly than on the valley floor. The cloud and the heavier air of the mountain slope start moving down about to about the valley of floor. And this is a noun of the browsing slope. There is a most important and important also here diagram mountain and valley browsing. There is important on the two diagrams show in this figure and the slope of heating by the isolation and slope is a cooling by the is a terrestrial radiation. The condition here the sun is there here and there is a moon here. There is a katabatic winds are there are mountain browsing here and valley browsing other side. The valley browsing is the sun is rising and the night of the moon is a mountain breezing. There is a most important mountain and valley breezing in the show in this diagram. The valley and the mountain browses are also named to the anabatics and catabatics is a browsing respectively. The next year, hot winds. Hot wind if there is the types a Lu, Foehn and Chinook. An important hot wind is a local category. The first year, Lu. Lu are the hot and dry winds which blow to very strongly over to the northern plain of India and Pakistan and the month of May and June. Their direction is a form of west to the east and they are usually experienced in the afternoon and there is a temperature varies between to the 45 Celsius to 50 Celsius. There is important here Lu. Lu are hot and dry winds which blow very strongly over to the northern plain of India and Pakistan in the month of May and June. And their direction is a more west to the east and there is usually experience in the afternoon. And there is temperature varies between to the 45 Celsius to 50 Celsius. The next year, Foehn. The Foehn is the most important, is a strongly dusty, dry and warm is a local wind which is developed on there is a leeward side of the Alps mountain range. There is important here. Luhams is a strong, dust, dry and warm local wind. Regionally pressure is a gradient force. The air is ascending and cross the barrier. Ascending air is sometimes cause of precipitation on the windward side of the mountains. After the crossing, there is a mountain crest. The Foehn's wind is started to descending on the leeward side of the northern slope of the mountain as a warm and dry wind. The temperature of the winds vary from to the 50 Celsius to 20 Celsius. There is important here, the vary for the temperature here, wind is a 15 Celsius to 20 Celsius, which help in the melting of snow. And thus the making of posture land ready for the animal grazing and the help the grapes to rip off earlier. That is important here. The next here, Chinook. That is important. Chinook is there is the name of the hot and dry local winds which move down to the eastern slope of the is a Rockies is the USA and the Canada. The literal is the meaning of their chuk is a snow eater as they help the melting the snow earlier. They keep the grassland clear of snow and as they are very helpful to the ranchers. There is important here. The next year cold wind, there is important. The local cold wind is originate in the snow-capped mountain during to the winter and move down to the slope to about to the valley. They are known as a different name of different area. The first is the Mistral. The Mistral are the most common local cold wind. There is originate on the Alphas and they move over to the France, to about to the Mediterranean, sea through their ruins valley. They are very cold and dry and high velocity wind. They vary up down to temperature below to freezing point in the area of their influence. People in this area is a protect their orchard and the gardens by the growing of thick hedges and the wild. There is a houses and fencing there. Mediterranean Sea. There is important here.